There should be, John, we're actually using an English translation of the Gita Dhyanam, and Kartikeya will help you to find it. Kartikeya?
Yeah, in one of the booklets, there should be an extra.
Okay, we'll get more help. We'll have everyone help.
Thank you.
Looks like it's time to print more out.
Thank you.
We have a special project, which is all of the books in there. I want to have one. I'll print more out. Who will put them in? Okay, very good. Okay. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, the destroyer of rebirth, shower the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows, the milker is the cowherd boy Krishna, Arjuna is the calf, people of purified intellect are the drinkers.
The milk is the supreme nectar
of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. So, as always, the Gita study is dedicated to our dear Swami Ramaswarupananda, who attained Mahasamadhi yesterday. So, so his body is now officially everywhere. Wow. We couldn't be more grateful. When the great souls merge, it's a gift for all of us. We couldn't be more grateful. We couldn't be more grateful for his tutelage, his example, for everything that he's offered. So, I share a little story, just a little story. I shared this on Sunday, this past Sunday when I was in Vermont with this group, very interested in learning something about Bhagavad Gita. And a session, and we'll always do this when I'm traveling, it's tea and Gita. So some of us remember, but I must share that. I must share the story. So Swamiji had served his master, Swami Satchidananda, for 34 years, faithfully. Swamiji had a thing. Swamiji was so protective that he had suffered from great anger. And so he was given a gift about 20 years ago. He had been in Australia serving his master in service, meeting with yogis there. And about 20 years ago, and his heart attacked him. Heart attack. His heart attacked him. Usually we have mind attacks. We're accustomed to these, I think, when our mind attacks us. So in this case, his heart attacked him. He was placed in the hospital. It looked like he would not go past that. It looked like that would be the end of this birth for him. And so, but he was attended to with such love, such care, and he recovered. There was a stroke as well, and the stroke paralyzed the body, and fluid built up in the lungs and all of this. And somehow he was cared for through all of it. And so I was able to be in his presence. And I didn't know him before then. I just heard. But the next 20 years, his master worked with him on anger, and finally the great soul that I met didn't have an anger problem. Just love, and not a problem. So, and had such great humor. I suppose he found it difficult to laugh in the earlier years when he had to protect so much. But having given that up and having come to understand that the protection is provided by Krishna, by the Lord, and really living it, really imbibing it, and being, Swami's favorite word is welcome, but it's not one word. When he says it, it's two words: welcome. So we would study, whenever we were together, we would study Bhagavad Gita day by day. And then when I had left India and I was walking pilgrimage, after the first year of pilgrimage, I felt the urge to share Geeta, and so I asked him for his blessing, which he gave so lovingly, and so the efforts continue to be rooted in this. Swamiji told me one day that he was meeting with a great teacher. So he had learned at the feet of Swami Satchidananda. Swami Satchidananda is a practical Vedantin, a practical yogi, meaning he practices what most preach. So Swami Satchidananda was an absolute embodiment of love, pure, complete, whole, with all of the animals, all of the creatures, all of the humans, everyone. I've actually never met anyone who had anything negative to say about Swami Satchidananda, Swami Ramasrupa's master. One day, Swami Ramasrupa had wanted to study with a renowned scholar Bhagavad Gita, and so he was in the area, and he asked the scholar. He said, "Swamiji has a real like for chai." Although in later years the chai couldn't be there anymore, so he had to give up the enjoyment of chai. So he enjoyed chai through everyone. So he asked first if he could attend the class, and the master said yes, the scholar. And then he said, "Is it okay if I have chai in the class?" And he was scolded. The scholar said, "Absolutely not. You cannot have anything. If you're studying the Gita is to be studied in all of its glory. You should have your full awareness and full attention on the Bhagavad Gita and nothing anywhere else." And so Swamiji, undeterred, you remember this, said, "Okay, I understand, I hear you, it's fine. What about when I'm drinking chai? Is it okay to study the Bhagavad Gita?" And so tea and Gita was formed. So every morning we would meet at 8 a.m. at Swamiji's kutir and take our daily readings from the Bhagavad Gita, but first having poured chai and having a biscuit, yes, and then enjoying the Bhagavad Gita. So always any opening of Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to our dear blessed Swami Ramasrupa. Okay, so where are we? Do we remember?
We're chapter 2, like 50.
Yeah, it's not the number, it's not about the number.
Oh, okay.
What's it about?
I don't remember.
You could say learning, remembering. Okay. What are we dealing with?
We're trying to understand how I realized one could act in the world and dealing with karma versus, jnana.
Oh, very good. So, and Lord Krishna has answered that question, and now he's moved into how it is that we recognize within ourselves. And he's comparing and contrasting. He's comparing and contrasting the one of distracted mind with firm mind. Now, in this case, mind meaning not so much the subconscious mind, but what? Not the subconscious mind so much, but okay, listen to what I'm saying. Subconscious versus conscious mind. Okay. So here he's speaking of the conscious mind, what's called D in intellect, that discriminative faculty. Discriminating between
The real and the unreal.
the real and the unreal. Okay. Very good. So he's describing here what it looks like inside and outside for the one whose discriminative faculty has come to discriminate and not to have the desire to engage in the pursuit of the unreal. So not so much interested in the sense objects, interested in the truth. And this is a very practical discussion. Where is the truth right now? Where is it? Thank you, dear. Where is it if it's not here? So it's here. But the Arjuna disease is what? Relative to the truth. Arjuna lost himself, right? So that's the Arjuna disease. We've all suffered from it. We all suffer from it, right? So if the truth is right here, what happened to Arjuna?
He's not seeing it.
He's not seeing it. Yeah, very good. Okay. And why is being discussed? Why is being discussed? And the cure is being discussed. Okay. So here, continuing. If the senses become excited, Arjuna, they will carry away even the mind of a wise person aiming for perfection. So give an example of that, please. Practical example. As we dedicate to Swamiji, this has to be practical. Swamiji was a practical man.
Well,
Wait, Ramasurpat.
Just
and then you
practically, technically, someone who, say, has gone through the throes of alcoholism and has found a way to live without it and beyond it, and so is free and doing their thing, and a few years pass and they feel really great, and maybe they've forgotten.
If the senses become
around,
excited.
Exactly, they're around some people here at celebrating the Shrine, and they could take a drink and head back into it.
So, there are ones that we might call teachers and gurus, etc. Guru, of course, is inside, and that needs to be remembered. Who might be well on their way to perfection, and then they see a pretty girl, and the senses get excited, and they lose themselves. So it's very practical, right? So what does that say to one who's on the path?
don't get cocky.
Stay vigilant.
Don't lose yourself. So be aware of this. Be aware of what Lord Krishna is teaching. Be ever vigilant. Be firm. Be firm with yourself, with the mind. But the yogi learns to control the senses by meditating on me as the highest goal. And so you see here he gives the prescription. Kartikeya, it's time to read that. Please.
The practical wisdom. See nothing, look at nothing but your goal ever shining before you. The things that happen to us do not matter. What we become through them does. Each day, accept everything is coming from God. At night, give everything back into his hand. Chinmayananda.
So this is actually the prescription that the Lord is providing. So first of all, he's speaking of the disease, the nature of the disease, right? That the potential is always there for these excited objects. And as a jnani, we can look at the object and see perhaps that the object is coming from mind, and it's not really what it appears to be anyway. But you'll have to be very firm there also. Right? Yeah. So here, Lord Krishna is saying it's possible. If the senses become excited, they will carry away even the mind of a wise person aiming for perfection. So it says ever vigilant, but also then he gives an even better prescription. which is meditate on me as the highest goal. So what does it mean to meditate? We have an idea which doesn't work. We have this idea because in this practice, generally speaking, we close the eyes for meditation. And we have all these images of these great yogis sitting in meditation. Why we idolize them when they're sitting in meditation is interesting. Because really, we should idolize them when they're washing the dishes. Or when they're having a discussion with someone that's yelling at them and they're not being disturbed. Someone who's calling them names. That's where we should idolize them. Right? Anyone can sit and be undisturbed if they can quiet the mind when nothing is disturbing outside. But then when things are going on, when the senses are getting excited, and this is what Lord Krishna is sharing in terms of the prescription, what to do. So what are we meditating on? Are we meditating on a blank? Are we trying to blank the experience? Are we trying to come into a nothing place? Often we would, trying to escape. But that's actually a misunderstanding of what the Lord is sharing. The Lord is saying, meditate on me. Meditate on me. When? Can we tell one more Swami story? So he loves this story, and he would tell it all the time to everyone. Do you know which one I'm talking about? You do.
Let's see.
The monk sitting in the forest.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, you want to tell it?
No. I could link it.
You could. So a monk is sitting in the forest. If you come across him, you're going to think he's the craziest soul, craziest person. Because he's just sitting there. His eyes are open for a while. He looks around, and then his eyes are closed, and he sits there steady. And the latter you would call meditation. But what's happening inside is that he sits there for a while with his eyes closed, and then he tells himself, if God is open, why have your eyes closed? If God is outside, why have your eyes closed? If God is outside, why have your eyes closed? So he opens his eyes and he looks around. And then after a while, he says to himself, if God is inside, why do you have your eyes open? And so he closes his eyes. And then after some time, if God is outside, why do you have your eyes closed? So what's the point?
But he's everywhere.
And he's everywhere. He's inside and he's outside. So he's meditating on God, on the Lord, on the Absolute. Eyes open or eyes closed?
Both all the time.
Both, all the time. All the time. We went to a Buddhist temple. I share this story. Swamiji appreciated the story. So when I had gone to Vietnam, I had the opportunity to visit a Buddhist temple. I was staying at the Satchidananda ashram there. And we went and visited, and the person that had taken me there told me about a prior experience. She'd taken another Swami there, and in that time, when I went, I didn't meet any of the monks. They were all cloistered, they were all in meetings, they were all engaged in their practices, so I didn't have the opportunity to meet them. But she told me a prior story. She said one of the Swamis that she had taken earlier met with one of the monks, and the Swami asked the question, how often a day do you meditate? And the monk looked at him a little like he was crazy and said, 24 hours. So this is the prescription we're being given. Eyes open, eyes closed.
24, that would include sleep too.
You don't suppose it continues in dreams? And where are you in deep sleep anyway?
Yeah, that's what I mean about that.
24 hours, uninterrupted. And that's called samadhi. And again, the idea is that that's an eyes closed state, but it's not. The only way you know if you're in samadhi is if when the eyes are open and the potential is there for the sense objects to get excited, or the senses to get excited, that you're undisturbed, steady. So, does that make sense? So the world in that way is giving us opportunity. Oh. So he says, oh,
how do you, this, I've never heard of meditation to God. How, I'm trying to grasp that. How do I do that?
So many ways. Chant the name, that's one. And realize whose name you're chanting. Connect. Connect with devotion. And now you're meditating on him or her, however you relate to that absolute.
What about without chanting? Let's say I'm talking to someone that I want to give this message, but they're not familiar with chanting.
You practice seeing what's in front of you. Practice seeing what's in front of you. You call this a hand, but there's no hand here. What you're looking at is universal. It's not separate. The 5 elements, there's so many ways to look at it. The 5 elements, which are coming from that absolute, most subtle. The energy, prana, which only comes from that absolute. Intelligence, picking up the T, intelligence. Look at it closely, look at the atoms. Beauty. So many different ways to see, and that's a meditation on Krishna. So, or on the Lord. So many different ways. Lord simplifies it. Think only of me, devote yourself completely to me, offer everything to me, offer all of the fruit to me. So work for me, the highest goal, the highest goal. Call it what you will, call it peace, call it love. Meditate on me, constantly. That's really the guidance. A yogi learns to control the senses by meditating on me as the highest goal. As the senses come under control, the yogi's wisdom becomes steady. Why? Where is this wisdom? Who lays claim to wisdom? Who says I am wise? Right. But where is the wisdom?
In God. In
the intuition, isn't it? It's the only place, the one storehouse of wisdom, right? Is the intuitive self. Is it true? Yeah. Because is it wise to take something from someone because you want it? That's what you'll hear from the ego. Right? I deserve this. They should bow down to me. They should treat me a certain way. That's not wisdom. What's wisdom? Love and serve all. It's wisdom, right? Where does it come from? We were talking, Sean made the point yesterday evening about the selfless motivation. When a truly selfless motivation comes, where is it coming from? And it's wisdom, right? It's wisdom. How do you know it? No harm. Purely beneficial. It's beneficial for the person who engages in the activity, and it's beneficial for all that are supported by it, right? So that's wisdom. Is it fair to say that's wisdom? Where did it come from?
Many times, as inspired as it is, you're not even there, when you're really in that place. Sharing, giving, it's really part of the energy.
So what he's sharing is this secret, it seems to be a secret, that by meditating on that highest as your goal, that the yogi becomes of steady intellect. Samadhi. That the yogi becomes of steady intellect. The mind undisturbed by the sense objects. And the wisdom flows, unlocked. Unlocked, right? Oh, so now it flows. Okay. As the senses come under control, the yogi's wisdom becomes steady. Does that make sense? Will you share? Not just does it make sense, does it resonate? So it says the key, right action, the key to right action, the key to right conduct, the key to resolution of anything is steady mind, controlled senses. And the prescription, keep your focus on me as the highest goal. And then he says, what happens if we don't? From brooding on sense objects, attachment to them arises. Out of attachment, personal desire is born. And from desire, anger appears. We were discussing, right? So anger, desire are one. Anger confuses the thinking process. Is it so? Have we seen? So who's your number one enemy? Anger. Not your mind. Anger. Anger is number one on the hit list. Anger brings all the disease. Right? And you see where it comes from. It comes from the idea that I need something that someone else has. So they have the ability to treat me in a certain way, and that's what I need. They have some object, they have some money, they have some whatever it is.
Lifestyle.
Lifestyle, whatever it is. Oh. They're the key to my peace. They need to be quiet.
It all relates to the comfort in the veins of the senses. I find practice the intellect, the misguided intellect, is dealing with how to discern, how to appropriate what we need so the senses are satisfied.
Absolutely.
And so when you go beyond, when you tap into that flow state or in chanting and mantra, you start touching these areas where you're operating beyond those senses, you start to really etch out that intuitive place, that development.
Right. So see the disease in the way, beautiful. See the disease in the way that it works. Anger then confuses the thinking process, yes? Which in turn disturbs memory. You see? Okay, so here. What do you remember? Well, one thing that you remember when you're not disturbed is not to get angry. Yes? We've had so many lessons about it.
I remember wise counsel.
So we remember, but then the memory's gone. And when memory fails, reasoning is ruined. So if you look at the intellect and the process of inquiry, at that point in time, it's ruined because we don't remember what we need to remember. What don't we remember? Well, Arjuna disease. We don't remember that Lord Krishna is right here in the chariot. Number one. Right? So, and there's actually nothing more important to remember than that. Once we know, and he knew. He knew. He made the point of telling Lord Krishna, when Lord Krishna asked, why did you choose me instead of the armies? He said, well, my Lord, I know who you are. So he knew, but he forgot. And the forgetting was so complete. Look at what we suffer from. The forgetting was so complete. Right? That there's no Lord here anymore. There is no highest anymore. There's just what's in front of me, these sense objects.
They're chasing the army, basically.
Yeah. When memory fails, reasoning is ruined. And when reason is gone, one is lost. Lost. And we say it in language, we say, I lost myself. But it's really true, yes? And the more we're lost, the harder it is to find. So he's painting the path to ruin. And he's giving them, and it's so black and white, isn't it? So clearly defined. If I am able to assert control within this inner world and have a mind which is, and therefore a person, which is undisturbed by the things happening around me, if I can do that, then I can see I have access to wisdom. Right? You can see? And if I don't, then I don't, and I'm lost. It's actually black and white. We were having a conversation yesterday. We said, what is the most important thing? Inner peace. So, inner peace, of course, is the realm of Krishna. It's the realm of the Lord. So, inner peace is known through grace. We have to do the work. And then it's known through grace. It's a place that exists. Peace exists. It's inside. So we know that it exists, and therefore it's also outside. We know it exists. But we keep losing it. Why are we losing it? If it always exists, we're only losing it because we're separating ourselves from it. How is it that we're separating ourselves from it? The sense objects take over. And any of them, that's how we lose ourselves. So there's that life, and then there's the life of sanctity, of controlling oneself, of turning it around. And he says, in how to do that, think always of me. Meditate on me always, as your highest goal. So however you relate, if you relate as love, it's fine. If there's a, and this is discussion later, if there's a way to relate personally, then that's great. That's amazing. We watched Hare Krishna, the movie. And we watched it. Some of us have seen it twice now. And I could watch it every day. So maybe again soon. Srila Prabhupada is talking about Krishna. And he's talking about if you know the name and address of God, then use it. There's a beautiful way of saying Krishna is not necessarily the only name. But if you know the name and address, use it. If you know the name and address, use it. Because that name and address is the salvation, because then we meditate upon that. Then we bring all of the inner activity to that as the goal. As the goal. And we see that, we learn to see that in every experience. We learn to see it in every place, in everything that's happening. There's nothing independent happening here. Is there, Mataji? Everything interlinked, everything orchestrated. Every meeting, every conversation, every interplay. All of it's happening within this great Lord. And so really it's a practice of seeing what's there, but withdrawing from the seeing of something independent and intentionally seeing the unity. Eyes open, see, eyes closed, see. It's a practice. It's a practice. But here we're being guided. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Swamiji, could you point out Swami Ramaswarupananda's portrait?
Yes, the laughing yogi right here. Oh. Our dear Ramaswarup is named after Swami Ramaswarupanandaji Maharaj. So. Oh.
Isn't it so wonderful, if I could reflect on your great message earlier about anger resulting from wanting. You know, this person has this or that.
Yeah.
And when I was at the Radhanath Swami temple in New York, I was an artist, and then I'd go to the Met and get inspiration and look at all these great works of art. And it dawned on me that, it's Picasso, Manet, Richter, all these great works, and I get to admire them, but I don't want them. I don't want to leave the museum with the campus in New York. And what Radhanath was saying essentially was, we're so blessed that we can see the super soul within all. So within the Lamborghini, within the person, within the, and then you're training yourself to not be disturbed by
Yes.
needing it.
Yes. And then you'll see that beauty everywhere. You'll see the beauty everywhere. It's there. It's always there. It's a question of perspective. Can you see it? And it's not, and that seeing of it won't happen by accident. You might be given an experience. We were talking about that a little bit yesterday. Even without asking, you might be given an experience, but then it'll go. But if you strive, then you can see what's here. You can know who's here.
I'd like to offer something. I can relate deeply to the releasing of that attachment, that energy that's there, but also applying to participating in all these energies that take us places and do things. I can remember when I started reading I Am That, everything else, all other books fell away, and I just started wondering, like, what is this reading? And it applied to music, and it was like, I was so involved with all this stuff, and I'm like, what am I really trying to do here? You know, by playing it or reading it or breathing, doing anything.
Right.
And that there was this central intelligence that was beyond anything we could capture that is so attractive to the mind in a way, you know, to almost spiritualize it or to identify with it in a free-flowing way, like the idea of art or anything like that. And coming to ashram and listening and chanting and letting it go time and time again, releasing it in a way, was able to really, I say concretely, but it's not like a physical aspect, to see that there's this ever-present, flowing, all-intelligent, this energy that we try to merge with, the ego does, but it's here and it's free-flowing. It was a cause of immense peace, and at least a place that I know is present here, that I can find my way back and you know, really begin to clear up in myself when I lose, you know, myself. But it's such a gift. It's the gift, you know, that I know I was seeking and trying to do all of these things and capture things and be something. Was this just to be a part of this energy, you know, this beautiful fruition, this ever blooming flower, right? And it's just this whole beautiful thing. But it's here and it's invisible. It's beautiful.
It's visible. It just requires a turning around.
Exactly. Yeah.
Recognize ego, what we call ego. There's an idea of ego being some independent thing also, but also ego is Krishna. And everything here is Krishna. So everything here is Ma. However we say, however we relate. We were chanting the Devi Stotram last night, and it says Bhranti is their Devi. Bhranti is that delusion. Bhranti is also the one Lord, the delusion also. So the ego, the word ego, we hear often edging God out, something like that. But ego isn't something independent. Ego is simply an inversion, like an inversion layer, and it's made of only one thing. Shankaracharya says, you know, the physical body, the astral body, they have aspects and they're made of something. The ingredient of the ego is only one thing, which is avidya, or ignorance. That's the only ingredient. The cure for egoism is knowledge, self-knowledge. Knowing that, again, however we relate, knowing that the Lord is omnipresent, wherever, and learning to see. Christ came to help us to see, learning to see. Learning to see in the way the masters are pointing us, helping us to see. So, and that, again, will come back to gratitude for our dear Swami. These masters that will give their entire lives to help us to see what's here. And to be free of the limited notions and ideas and ideals. And to be aware of the splendor that's here, everywhere, all the time, constant. Okay, let's close with final prayers in RT, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rupameva Bandhanam Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rupameva Bandhanam Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rupameva Bandhanam Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Makashintu Gabhagave Masato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityur Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Universal prayer, O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto Thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing Thy glories. Let Thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Ambalo Sakguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. Ambalo Sakguru Saraswati Mani Ki Jai. Ambalo Shri Guru Swami Ramasrupananda Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Yes.